Hi. Welcome back to the Mitten Players. I'm your host, Tim. I know, I look tired. I just got out of my dance class. Dancing is a very energizing activity, and it's also a fulfilling way for me and others to unwind and express themselves. This episode is in the lines of that, especially Broadway's How to Dance in Ohio. On this episode, I had the chance to interview Jacob Yandura. Based in New York City, he holds a BA in music composition from Kenyon College and an FMA from New York City's Graduate Musical Theater Writing Program. Some of his work includes The Last Queen of Canaan, The Coup, and most recently, the musical adaptation of the 2015 award-winning documentary, How to Dance in Ohio. So, for our viewers, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in the theater scene?
My name is Jacob Yandura. I'm a composer, and I recently wrote How to Dance in Ohio, which premiered on Broadway. I have always wanted to be a musical theater writer, and from the time I was very, very young, I was always attracted to the arts, and I was always that kid that wanted to create a theater in the basement and put on my own productions. And so I would get all, my friends in the neighborhood, and I would, create shows, and they, would help me put them on. And then I started playing piano when I was about 6 years old. My mom signed me up for piano lessons, and once I started with that, I just, that was it for me. I was like, this is what I want to do. And once I started to learn how to notate and had some music theory training, then I started writing my own music. So from a very young age, I started doing this, and my mom was really supportive and really sought out mentors for me. And so she had great relationships with my piano teacher growing up, and then also my the choir teachers in middle school and high school. And so I started entering music. I don't know if you remember solo ensemble growing
Yep,
up, like
very well.
competitions like that. So
Yeah.
they had like a similar thing for composers, and where you would submit your piece, and then they would have a jury, and they would give you a rating and all that kind of stuff. So with that experience, then that led me to composition camps and programs in high school. And so once I got to high school, I did a summer composition camp at Westminster Choir College, in right in Princeton. And one of my friends that was in the camp with me, her dad was a Broadway composer that I didn't know about. And so he heard my music and went up to me and my mom and said, "Hey, I think Jacob's really talented. I teach at NYU at the Graduate Musical Theater Songwriting Program." And at that time, they had offered a program for high school students. So the following summer, I applied for that, and got in, which was awesome. And so yeah, so Mel Marvin is his name, and he wrote How the Grinch Stole Christmas on Broadway, and he did original music for Angels in America, and a bunch of stuff. He's amazing, and a lot of operas. So he's been, was my mentor from a very young age, and really encouraged me to say then, hey, if you want to be a composer, now thinking about college, you have to know so much more than just how to write a good tune and a good chord progression. So he really urged me to look at liberal arts schools. And so I started, looking at, but I really wanted to be near New York. I was like, I have to be
Mhm.
near New York. And he said to me, "Jacob, New York's not going anywhere. You want to find a good liberal arts school where you can have one-on-one education and a relationship with your professors." So I found Kenyon College, which is a liberal arts school in Ohio. And I didn't even know about it until my senior year, and I fell in love with it. And it's really a wonderful school for writers, and no matter what you study, if whatever concentration you're in, you walk out a writer. So then that really prepared me for grad school. So I ended up at NYU for grad school. And then that's where I met my songwriting partner. And we've been writing together ever since.
Love that for
That was
you.
a long answer.
I mean, that's a great starting point for the question. That was
Yeah.
that was going to lead into my next question.
Yeah.
Definitely on the same boat as you in terms of like finding a liberal arts school and like finding your passion and whatnot, and definitely bring back that whole solo and ensemble memories for me. That's
Oh
for
my gosh.
that's for
Do you remember
sure.
how stressful that was?
Oh yeah, that is
Oh my
definitely for
gosh.
sure. I remember.
What did
Hmm?
did you do voice or did you have an instrument?
Yeah, I did pretty much voice for about 3 years. I did a
Hmm.
solo once and I did three or four pieces like on an ensemble ways. I was in an a cappella group in high school. Uh
Oh, cool.
yeah. Then COVID hit and then it was kind of like what are we doing from
Yeah.
what initially sparked your interest in the field of Broadway composing slash lyric writing?
I think what initially sparked it for me was again, I love that it tells a story, unlike just songwriting in general. I
Mhm.
love theater so much. So I wanted to write songs that pertain to a specific story. And I love the idea of, on Broadway or wherever, whatever theater you're in,
Mhm.
only that audience can see that specific show a night. Like I think there's just an intimacy to it and a beauty that it only exists for that specific audience, which I was always attracted to. But yeah, I think the storytelling element of it, and I love that like I could sort of synthesize different kinds of styles, and I really
Mhm.
loved writing from character and how getting inside the characters' minds, how do these characters tick, how do they sound, how do they exist in the world. So I just love the theatricality of it.
Mhm.
I mean, I love writing like standalone pop songs as well.
Right.
That's definitely like a fun. I really enjoy that too. But
Mhm.
yeah, I've always loved the craft of musical theater songwriting.
What would you say a typical day looks like for you when you're working on a new or coexisting project?
So that's fun because I'm in the process of starting a new project, right?
Mhm.
So it's a lot of hard work, and
Mhm.
you're the only one that is telling you to do it. So,
Yeah.
I really try to treat my work and my job as like a 9 to 5 job, and what's cool for me right now, I'm in the process of writing 3 new projects. And I'm really into this one at the moment, and I'm in the research phase. So I'm reading lots of memoirs, novels around the time period, listening to music from the time period, which is
Right.
like the 80s, 90s. So getting into that. Um, but so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm really in that research phase. So
Mhm.
it's a little less exciting right
Right.
now. But my songwriting partner, Rebecca Milosic, who is my she writes the lyrics, I write the music. Um, she lives a couple blocks away from me. So then we'll take breaks during the middle of the day and go walk and dream up a new song idea. She actually just sent me a full lyric yesterday. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah, so we're kind of getting our teeth wet, so
Mhm.
sinking into to different things. So it changes from week to week. I'll you know and I think that actually we could lead into the writing process. So sometimes she'll write a full lyric just like she did yesterday,
Mhm.
and then I'll set it, and usually I'll have her make a recording of her speaking the lyric to me so I can hear where certain emphasis lies and how she wants it to to be treated. So that's kind of where we are right now. Or then sometimes, I created a bunch of different themes that are like, I don't know if this is any good. I don't know if this is,
Right.
but I think this is how, some musical themes could sound. So I did that a couple weeks ago and sent her those themes, and she's been setting lyrics around that. So we're in a very like brainstormy play.
Demo, like,
Yeah, throw
yeah.
spaghetti at the wall and kind of see what sticks.
Yeah, something
Um,
like that. Yeah.
so that's kind of where we're living now.
Mhm.
But the which is very different from the Broadway experience. Once you're on
Mhm.
Broadway, it's all production based. We would have to meet deadlines, and we even set deadlines for ourselves. I feel like you'll never finish something unless you set a deadline. So we're
Right.
really big on that. Um, but once I had a dance in Ohio, came to Broadway, we were in rehearsals every day from, gosh, about I would get there around 9 o'clock in the morning. Rehearsal would start at 10. And then we would leave at 6. So you're in full day, and then when you get into tech, you know how tech is going right now,
Mhm.
right? It's high stress, you're in dark space for a long time, and then we get rewrites, and I have to be, then work through the night to fix those changes and stuff like that. So it's fun, I
Yeah,
love it.
definitely. I'm definitely learning a little bit about the whole equity scheduling aspect of
Hmm.
that in my theater management course I'm taking right now.
Oh,
It's
cool.
really interesting, yeah. And it's definitely different from like I'd say like the traditional college theater experience or even just
Yeah.
professional performance in general. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
compared to that and like everything else going on, it's quite interesting. It's
Yeah. All the hours are controlled by the unions.
yeah, definitely that 9 to 5 type job, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, because it's not, I don't have to report to an office every day. I don't have
Hmm.
to do that kind of stuff. But I definitely want that structure in my life, and I really
Hmm.
thrive off of that structure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I try to create that.
What would you find the most rewarding about the creative process?
Oh my gosh. I think, well, the first thing that jumps to mind, nothing is better than when you finish your first draft of a song. Nothing is better than that. It's because it's the first time you hear, a complete thing of an idea that came from nothing.
Hmm.
So I always love that feeling of, oh my gosh, I just finished this, you know, I finished it. And then you quickly go back and you rewrite and you rewrite and you rewrite. And so then,
Right.
it's so I think that first spark of, whoa, here's something, and now we can mold it and change it and do different things. But I really I truly value the collaborative process, and I think that's another thing why I love theater so much is that it's very collaborative.
Right.
Which is separate of just being a singer-songwriter. You're working by yourself pretty much, or a film score. You're working by yourself. Not all the times, but a lot of the time. So and I have times where I'm by myself too, but I really thrive off of the feedback of, okay, Rebecca, what do you think about this? And then when we get our director involved, what do you think about that? And then choreographer, so like all of their sort of expertise then has value into something bigger. So I
Right.
really value the collaborative process. Like what Rebecca and I think where our strong suit really is in the rewriting.
Hmm.
And, I mean, there's also the saying too that, writers don't write, they rewrite.
Right.
you know, and
Yeah.
so it's interesting. I'm actually in the process too now. We're in the process of signing with a publisher. So all of our music can then be all the vocal selections will be available for everybody to, purchase the sheet music to and sing. So trying to get that out as soon as possible. But
Mhm.
I have to like come up with a list of every song we've written. So
Mhm.
not just How to Dance in Ohio, but other shows that we've written. So all morning I've been going back and seeing all these old drafts of songs. I'm like, I don't even remember writing that. It's been really trippy to see, but then also cool. It's like, whoa, we've really grown a lot. Like we've really learned a lot, like
Like taking a trip down
it's
memory lane and just like looking at old parts of what you wanted to include and what you did,
yeah.
so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really awesome. Um, yeah, I love all that.
What are some of the challenges you face when creating music for a production, big or small, and how do you overcome them?
Interesting. That's a great question. Um, so I would say a challenge. Well, I think one of the challenge specifically to Ohio, before we had our cast, you have an idea of how you want the song to sound. And but sometimes, your hands will just go to the different keys that, you pick certain keys arbitrarily just because you like the way that sounds. But and I had an idea of, oh, Drew is going to be more of the tenor track, Tommy's going to be more of the baritone track, or Mel is going to be the alto, But then once we got our cast, then I really then had to learn how to tailor each song to those specific actors. And so I think that definitely was a challenge of, learning where their voices sit, and what's the you know how can I showcase them better. So that
Mhm.
was a challenge, like an exciting challenge, because I was like, I have to be completely open and not say like this has to be, in this key, and I was very open to molding it. So that was definitely a challenge. I think another challenge is when a director or a choreographer wants something different than you originally had written, or if they want you to cut certain measures and in the arranging of things, or add certain measures because they don't have an actor doesn't have enough time to travel from here to there, so
Working on those quick
the
changes, basically.
quick changes, yes, that is, transitions are
Transitions
always
too.
tricky, always tricky.
Hmm.
But I love that, and I think another challenge that I faced was working on the cast album. And it was, I was having to work on the cast album while we were in previews, putting up the show. And a really interesting challenge for that was, um, our producers only wanted, you could only record 60 minutes of music. So our show, I mean, the show, there's about 2 hours of music, like
Right,
there is,
right.
a lot of it is through composed, a lot of it is, so you had to look at that album as an album, and not like, it's not the, I mean, it is the show, but it's not, the experience that you'll go when you see,
Right, right.
the theater, and the best advice that I got was like, think of yourself out on a road trip. What do you want to see? So having to find cuts to, um, make it feel seamless, without feeling like they're actually cuts,
Hmm.
so that was an exciting challenge. So yeah, so not only do you have to have, you can't go over 60 minutes, because if you go over 60 minutes, then it's like so much more money added to the budget. So if you go like a second over 60 minutes, you go into the next budget bracket, basically. And then
Gotcha.
only every track can't go over 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So, you have these parameters that are like, okay, we have this thing, but wow, now they have to fit into this other thing. So that was an exciting challenge. Um, so yeah, so there's, logistical things like that. Direct, collect team member things. I think another challenge too is, if I, just generally speaking, if I write a piece of music that Rebecca doesn't necessarily think is right, how do we go around that conversation? Or lyrically, if she sends me a lyric that I'm like, I don't quite think that's right. Those are difficult conversations to have, but we both respect each other so much. And I respect that she has such a musical ear. And I think she respects that I have a lyrical eye, you know?
Right.
So we make for a good team that way. So yeah, there's a lot of different challenges, but I think they're fun. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, I remember when I saw I think it was the listing for the cast album. I was thinking there was like maybe a couple more songs that there were
Yeah.
supposed to be there. I was like, I wasn't for sure if it was like to avoid spoiling the show per se, or if it was like something else that was
Yeah.
going on. But yeah, that
Yeah,
completely.
you kind of
Mhm.
think about, yeah, it's all controlled by money. And
That's totally
how
yeah.
much
Mhm.
producers want to spend on it. That's just the reality of the business, you know.
Right.
Um so yeah, and I think cast albums, they're no longer the days of the double disc CDs, and where they just record the whole show.
Mhm.
For some, I think if you're the Hamiltons and the Sweeney Todds and all of that, but for a new musical, producers try to be like very, frugal with their money. So,
Right. Right.
yeah, and I think part of it is to, not spoiling the show, but so that's where like we really tried to take the dialogue out of it and just focus on the musical storytelling. There's so many like passages and so many other things that I wish we could get on it, but just
Right.
wasn't enough time. So
Yeah. Okay, now on to the big picture, which of course
yeah.
we're already talking about already. So, How to Dance in Ohio. We know this was based on the 2015 HBO documentary of the same name and made history with 7 Broadway debuts, all autistic. How did the musical adaptation come to fruition?
So I actually found the documentary. So it's based off of a documentary of the same name, that's on HBO. And I was home. This was probably 2016, I think, at this point. And I came across the title and I was struck by it because I'm from Columbus, Ohio, where it takes place. And also my sister is autistic, and she was finally given like the proper diagnosis. I want to say maybe 6 months before I saw the documentary. So I had to watch it immediately, and it completely sang to me because it was all about the how-tos of life, how to be independent and learning how to have, proper how to communicate with each other. So I loved that. I wrote to Rebecca and our agent, and I said, please watch this. I think there's something here. And it's emotional and it sings and it's about a community, which I think a lot of musicals, a lot of successful musicals are about community. And that's a theme that I'm interested in exploring too. And so they watched it, they loved it, and agreed. And our agent then set us up with the filmmaker, Alexander Shiva. And a few months later, and we kind of pitched our idea to her. And she was surprised. She was like, I never thought this could be a musical, but the more we talk about it, I'm really intrigued. And it was really cool. And she was a little skeptical of the music side of things, and she did bring up like some caution because when they were filming the movie, the hardest part of that process was the score. And I apparently had went through 3 or 4 different composers, and the reason for that was they were trying to create a sound for autism. And and I assured her that is not what I want to do. It is all about universal, um, and anthems and creating, it's all about the characters and the emotion. It's not creating a sound for autism. So she was very comforted by that. And nor should there be one sound for autism, right? So, yeah, so she gave us her blessing to start working on the project. And then a few months later, we got connected with Hal Prince, who was the godfather of Broadway. He, was a very big director and producer. He directed Phantom of the Opera and Sweeney Todd, a lot of Sondheim musicals. And so he was looking for a new project. And his granddaughter is autistic, and he was looking for his new project to explore autism. And so friends, multiple people connected us with him. And what we didn't know at the time is that his granddaughter his daughter, Lucy Prince, is best friends with the filmmaker, Alexander Shiva. So the film is actually dedicated to his granddaughter. So it was just all these kismet sort of moments that, were crazy. So we worked with him for about 2.5 years until he passed away right before the pandemic. And then we brought another director on, Sammy Canold, right as the pandemic happened. So a lot of the development was over Zoom and in isolation, and then once we came out of the pandemic, we had our first reading in fall of 2021, and so that's when we had auditions and a cast and all that stuff. So it was, and all of I would say 75% of our cast from our first reading stayed with the project through Broadway. So it was super, super exciting.
For our viewers watching or listening, could you tell us about the plot?
Yeah, sure. So the musical is about a group of autistic young adults that are part of a group therapy program in Columbus, Ohio. And as a social skills therapy tool, the director of the program, the center, decides to throw a dance to learn different social skills and how to communicate. And so the musical is really an ensemble piece where you learn, really get to an insight to the 7 different autistic cast members or characters, I should say. And so it's basically a culmination to the final moment of this dance, and they go through the trials of adulthood and learning how to be independent, learning how to connect, how to survive in the workforce, and all the how-tos of life.
When working with actors, both autistic and not autistic, what was the rehearsal process like compared to other shows you worked on? I know there were some accessibility measures made within the rehearsal process and in the theater itself.
Yeah, so we early on we brought on autistic consultants, and from that named Ava Reigelhaupt, and she was really helpful from the beginning to make sure that the writing is authentic, and really to bring an autistic voice into the creation of it. But then from there, we brought on a director of community engagement named Becky Leafman. And Becky and Ava, and then our other autistic consultant, Nicole D'Angelo, the 3 of them really were so crucial in setting up how we wanted to run the rooms, and so what was awesome about the start of the process was they created an access survey to the entire company and crew. So the survey went out a few weeks before rehearsal started for every portion of the development. So for like our first 29-hour reading, and then for the workshops that were after that, and then for both productions. And so these access surveys basically were like, tell us any, sort of stimuli or anything that, sort of sounds or different things to stay away from, or, what makes you the most comfortable in the rehearsal. And it wasn't just for the autistic members, but for everybody. So that was very helpful, and where everybody then could see, how everyone like to collaborate. And so, but then during the rehearsal process, if we also had quiet rooms and sort of, just stillness if anybody felt overwhelmed or needed just to take a break for a minute, and they could go to the sensory friendly room and relax for a bit. And so, I think like with most shows, you only were allowed to take breaks when the stage manager said it was time to take a break. And so, but, if the choreographer, was bringing in new choreography or teaching new choreography, and there was an actor that felt overwhelmed, they were free to leave the room anytime that they needed. So that was really an awesome example of the way the room
Judgment free, basically.
Yeah, judgment free, and we would go around, like I remember meeting on the first reading, and we would, say our name and pronouns and what we did on the show, and if we had any access needs to share at the time. And so for people, didn't have anything to share, but the access needs, may change day to day, and so one actor basically said, I've a huge sensitivity to the sound of metal. So if you can, try not to tap on the music stands, or and whistling, if you can not whistle, that really is sensitive to me. So we would go around. So that was some examples of that. So yeah, it was really awesome, and I feel like has made a big impact on the industry. Of other directors and producers, are now, well, we're going to share an access survey, before. So it's been really awesome to see how other companies of other Broadway shows, partaking in that now, and sort of carrying the tradition, which is great.
Can you talk about your creative inspirations while writing for the show?
Yeah. So one thing for me that was really important, the show starts with our 7 actors as themselves greeting the audience. And they say, we are 7 autistic actors. You're going to see these 7, playing these 7 autistic characters. And so if you've only met one autistic person, you've only met one autistic person. And here you're meeting 7 autistic people. And so I really wanted to embrace that sentiment musically. And that's why there's so much counterpoint in the show. And so, each character has their own theme and their own journey. And it, and the opening number sets that all up. And it's interesting because they all have 7 different perspectives on life and are all going through life in their own way. But the universal thing is that we're all learning community, and we're all learning life together and going through it together. So that's what I loved. So I really wanted to illustrate that in the score. And so then you see these themes developing and expanding throughout the entire show. So it's been fun, people because it's impossible to completely hear it all upon first listen. But then once you listen to it more, they're like, oh my God, that theme. Oh my God, that theme. So that's been really fun to listen to. Another fun, like, little score thing is the theme, the bum 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 bum. And that there's 7 pitches, and that's for the 7 group members. So it's been fun to like, put different meanings behind the score.
Speaking of which, what was your favorite song to work on?
Favorite song to work on. I have many. Today's was super fun to work on, because the process was so interesting. And Rebecca, I started creating like the scale motif. And then Rebecca just really created a chart of everyday things, for the characters. And so there really wasn't like a structured lyric. And so it was a very sort of like organic process that was super fun. And then we eventually, it became the thing. But yeah, but first starting on that was super fun. I think one of my favorite songs, and the process was so fun, was the song Drift, which is Meredith's song in the second act. It was one of those songs that, just kind of flew out of us. It just happened, and it felt effortless. Um, whereas other songs, take a while, or each song is its own thing, its own
Right,
beast.
right.
So Waves and Wires was also super fun to write. It's also another favorite moment of the show, and also utilizes a lot of counterpoint. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. So I think those were definitely like my three. I mean, Building Momentum was also very fun to write.
Yeah,
Um,
I was gonna say my favorite pre-album song is Building Momentum. I
uh-huh.
remember adding that song to my 2023 Jams playlist and like
Yeah.
literally belting the heck out of it on the way to class. Like
Oh, I'm so glad you love it.
every other day, yeah. I was like, if sheet music ever gets released for this song, I'm gonna use it at my next audition. Like
Oh, yes.
it's that good. It's that good.
Thank
Um,
you. I
yeah.
promise we're working on to get it out as soon as we can.
That would be spectacular. Um,
Yeah.
Post
Mhm.
album would definitely be either Waves and Wires or
Uh-huh.
Butterflies.
Oh,
I
yay.
found Butterflies to be a cute plot point in the story. Waves and Wires, I don't know specifically. I think it's like I want to say the middle to the end, like that
Hmm.
whole bit, like
Hmm.
something about that just makes my ears just ring with joy. I don't know how to
Oh, thank
describe it.
you.
I just, yeah, basic.
I'm so glad it was definitely a joy to write. And
Hmm.
it feels majestic, at times. And but all the anxieties of self-doubt and all these different things are sort of accumulating. So it really was fun to like write a big, like, we're getting to the end of the act, and a
Right,
cliffhanger
right.
moment.
Hmm.
I'm glad that song resonates with you.
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah, and also so much in common. That chord progression, like all the way through the song, Chef's Kiss.
Thank you. Actually,
Yeah,
that's another one that I'm very, very proud of.
right.
Yeah,
As y'all.
that was super fun to write. And what I
Um,
love about that song too is you really see the personality of each character come out,
mhm.
which is super fun for me.
Right. What song was the most worked on from the Syracuse production to the show opening night?
Nothing at all, because it was an activism song, and it was one of those songs that we really needed to get right. And so yeah, that went through draft after draft after draft. So yeah, I would say that song. And then the how-tos that didn't exist in Syracuse. So that was written right after Syracuse. Um, so that went through a lot of revisions from because we had a workshop, like a 4-week workshop in between Syracuse and Broadway.
Mhm.
So that song was written. But yeah, I would say Nothing at All went through a lot of revisions.
When you said nothing at all, my brain first went like nothing was worked on the most.
Oh,
But like,
Nothing.
no,
No.
nothing at all. The song. I knew what you were. I was like, my brain was like flipping back and forth. I was like, no,
Oh,
the song.
that's hilarious. Yeah, no,
Yes,
the song,
the
nothing at all.
song, nothing at all. Yes.
Hmm. Hmm.
What advice would you give to inspiring actors on the autism spectrum who potentially want to take theater to the next level?
Oh my gosh, I think the the best piece of advice is to be yourself and to learn as much as you can, and not just about performing, but I think actors sometimes just get so excited about performing, but that's why I'm so excited you're taking this business course, and learning about what your potentially other collaborators do in the industry is so beneficial. Um, you know, Taking music classes, even if it's you have a general um knowledge of playing the piano, like those skills, sight reading skills, all of that will just get you further down the line, because you have to learn songs very quickly. And, a lot of times actors are just doing readings of new shows, and there's virtually no rehearsal time. So if you prove yourself to be a good sight reader, people will call you back, So it's just,
Mhm.
really developing your other skills that and not just performance. I think that's the best piece of advice that I would give. It just sets you apart from everyone else.
Despite the show's closure,
Mhm.
are you able to comment on anything about the show's post-Broadway run, whether that be a potential tour or licensing opportunities?
Yeah, so I can't speak on a lot of it, but we are negotiating licensing. So that is happening, which is very exciting. And yes, we're working on other productions, but I can't specifically say at this time. But it has, and I think the beautiful thing about this is Broadway is one production, right? It's one
Right.
production.
Hmm.
And we came and we did what we wanted to do, and we made an impact. And I think now we're in a place of like, we can bring the show. So many more people are going to be able to see the show and do the show, and I
Hmm.
think that is what excites me the most. So, things take time. The business takes time. I want it all to happen right now, but
Right, right.
things have to be, figured and back to budgets. you know.
Back to the womb
But
budgets,
yes,
management,
there
all that stuff.
there is a very exciting and long life for the show. So stay tuned.
We'll be keeping my eyes open on that.
Yeah.
Where can we find you on social media?
Sure. My Instagram is at Jacob Yandura Music. And I'm also on Facebook. I don't really use TikTok, but I might be on there. But I'm mostly on Instagram.